Tom, first give us the big takeaways from the premier's speech.
Betty, I think we're talking about a tonal shift in terms of the politics, a crystallizing of support for President Xi Jinping, but also a tonal shift in terms of the economics. And that GDP target of about 6.5% speaks to that. It gives a bit of flexibility to policymakers who have in the past been obsessed by hitting this target, growth at all costs. We had other targets that they laid out for us. The budget deficit, 3%. The new money supply is going to be increased by 12% versus 13%. And then there were some comments on the increased liberalization of the yuan from Prime Minister Li. Those were some of the main points in his speech, and it really speaks to this shift now to focusing on reining in these risks. We heard from analysts at Commerzbank saying that they now expect monetary policy to gradually tighten in China. But of course, the words that we've heard from policymakers here haven't always matched the reality, and we know that in January credit hit record levels here, and we know, of course, that debt to GDP is around 260%. So some big challenges, and it's unlikely they're going to make any very significant moves this year because they don't want to rock the political boat ahead of this very important political and party congress towards the end of the year.
No, they don't want to do that at all. And they don't want to rock the boat by not hitting their target. So how likely is it that they are going to hit the GDP target?
That is the crucial question, and Bloomberg has been speaking to economists. They expect that 6.5% will be hit by the end of 2017, but there are a number of key risks that need to be factored into this consideration. Domestically, Li Keqiang says they are very much focused on things like the rising non-performing loans, bond defaults, shadow banking, online finance. We've heard policymakers talk about these concerns for some time, but he did put that in his work report. Also domestically, we've got the auto sector, which boomed last year on the back of these tax cuts. Those tax cuts are not as generous this year. But the property sector is another risk. And then externally, and we heard Li Keqiang point to this, there are the forces, as Li Keqiang said, of anti-globalization and protectionism, something of a swipe at the likes of Donald Trump. And then there's the Fed rate hikes, which would put increased pressure on the yuan. Capital controls are already in place, but it would only make the dilemma for the PBOC that much more difficult. Policymakers here, Li Keqiang also saying they're going to continue to cut back on overcapacity steel. They're going to cut about 50 million tonnes there and about 150 million tonnes in the coal sector as well.
And Tom, you know, the comrade Xi at the core, I mean, we got a little bit more insight here in terms of some of these political maneuverings, I guess you could call it, going on before this crucial party congress later on in the year.
Yeah, it was interesting. We turned to one of the pages in the work report and it had the list of priorities, and right at the top was acknowledging that Xi Jinping, the president, is the core of the party. And it's a symbolic term that's only been applied to four presidents in China's modern history. Hu Jintao did not have this symbol attached to him, but Jiang Zemin did. But no one, apart from Mao Zedong, has had core and the presidency mentioned quite as many times in the work report as Xi Jinping did by Li Keqiang, his former rival, yesterday. So it is interesting. It seems like the political forces are coalescing around the president. But clearly, you know, he would have put a number of noses out of joint in the last few years. About 1 million officials have been punished, many of them jailed. So there will be divisions within the party and tensions. The question is whether they bubble up to the surface before this crucial party congress, which we expect to be held in October or November, where President Xi Jinping is expected to reshuffle the leadership. He should be stepping down, according to convention, by 2022. There's suggestions that he may try to hold on, but this is really about his legacy, this party reshuffle. And that is what we've got to watch, those political machinations leading up to the party congress.